So as many of you all know, I have not uploaded a YouTube video in the last 5 months. There's some reasons for that, and I'll talk about that later on in this video. But with that said, I wanted to jump right into this video, and the title and topic in this video is I am fluent now in Spanish. I can confidently say that I am at a level in which I am fluent, and I want to make this video because, as you all know from the beginning of my channel, my goal has always been to give you all information that I think will be useful for you all. And so this feeling that I'm experiencing now is something that I think it would be beneficial for you all to know about. And so I wanted to share this with you all, even though I have not uploaded a video in so long. I apologize. Lo siento mucho. So for some reason in the language learning world, it's almost sacrilegious to say that you are fluent in another language that you've learned. So let that be your second language, and God forbid you say that you're fluent in your first language. Apparently this is sacrilegious in the language learning world, and the logic behind that, in terms of the people that say that, the logic behind that, I guess, and I understood it, I actually subscribed to this belief at one point. The logic behind that is, well, you're always learning, and so you're never really truly fluent. I disagree with that, because I inherently disagree with that definition of being fluent in a language. I don't think that being fluent in a language means that, sorry, oh my gosh, get away from me. I don't mean that being fluent, I don't think, that being fluent in a language means that you know every single word and you know everything about the language. I just think that it means when the language becomes as comfortable or more comfortable to interact with compared with your native language. And so I, at this point, have gotten to a point where Spanish and English, my comfort with both is about the same. And I want to go over a few specific tangible things that are happening to me so that you all see what I mean here. But I'm experiencing some things now after 3 years and 6 months, we're at the end of June yet, 3 years and 6 months of learning Spanish, where this language is in me. Like, it sounds weird, but this language it's a part of me. There's no way at this point of my language learning journey with the Spanish language that I feel like my Spanish could get worse or that I could lose the language. Okay, and so I want to talk about that in this video, some things that I'm experiencing, so that in the future you all will know when you are, by my definition, and I think by the average language learner's definition of just being at a point where the language is locked in, when you're at that point. And so I want to talk about what I'm experiencing now so that you all can get a heads up on that as you progress through learning Spanish. So most of us, when we're learning Spanish, we experience these things, okay? We experience having to mentally conjugate when you're thinking about words in Spanish. When you're listening sometimes, even if you are at an advanced level, right? There are times when you're listening to Spanish and your brain takes what the Spanish speaker said, excuse me, something bit me, where you take what the Spanish speaker said and you convert it or translate it in your brain to English, even if you're advanced in your Spanish journey, right? Other things that happen, something is literally biting me. Sorry. Wow, give me a second. Something's on me, man. Other things that you might experience is how I used to describe Spanish was, it was like, and this analogy is going to be weird and somewhat odd and strange, but it was like having a glove on. And what do I mean by that? You know, the sense of touch, one of the 5 senses, touch, right? If you don't have gloves on, obviously you can sense everything. Everything seems natural, it seems tangible, right? But with a glove, you still feel everything, but there's a barrier there. There's a barrier there, right? And so that is how interacting with Spanish for me felt for a long time. Now, when I got to an advanced level, that went away, but it still was there. There was like a little, hopefully you all catch what I'm saying here. There was like a little film barrier that stopped it from being just innate for me. That has gone away. Ahora mismo, les puedo hablar en español, decir lo que quiera, sin pensarlo 2 veces. Literal, el idioma me está saliendo. No cometo errores como hacía antes. O sea, literal, el idioma es una parte de quien soy yo. Okay? So that's the first heads up that I want to give you all. When the language stops feeling secondary, when the language starts to feel as innate as English does for you, that is when you know that you are fluent in the language. Now, in this case, I'm talking about Spanish, but I think this applies to any language, and I'm going to use this rule to apply to Swahili because I didn't mention it yet, but I'm back learning Swahili. I'm gonna I have started learning Swahili again. So that's the first thing that I want to let you all know. You will get to a point, if you continue with Spanish, you will get to a point where it feels as natural as English, okay? So that's the first point. Piggybacking off of that point, I've mentioned in videos prior, like in other videos, and specifically in conversation videos that I've done, I've mentioned to someone like, oh, I haven't spoken Spanish all week, and so I'm a little rusty. Or I haven't listened to Spanish today, I'm a little rusty. This is when I was like a year or 2 years into learning Spanish. The concept of being rusty with Spanish now is not a thing. Like, I don't get rusty in English because it's innate. It's a part of my brain. Like, it's literally programmed in my brain. Hopefully you guys couldn't hear that. We're in Georgia, people shoot out here. And so, yeah, so long story short, Spanish, I don't have to warm up anymore. That concept of warming up or being rusty or anything like that, it's non-existent. It's just a part of who I am. It's a part of my brain. It's programmed in my mind. The next point I'd like to make is that one of the reasons that I stopped learning Swahili earlier this year, I think it was, yeah, was because I felt like I still was at a point where I felt like I could forget or lose Spanish. Like, I actually felt like that could happen. Sorry, I actually felt like that could happen. I felt like I could lose some Spanish. At this point, piggybacking off of everything that I've said so far, that cannot happen. I know that even if I spend 2 years dedicating the same amount of time, effort, and energy into learning Swahili that I did with Spanish, my Spanish is not going to go away. And I'm going to tell you why, right? It would be idiotic for me when I first started to learn Spanish. It would have been idiotic to say, oh, I don't want to learn Spanish because I might forget English. Everybody, if I ask that to you all would respond like, what are you talking about? It's your mother tongue. It's your native language. You're not going to forget your native language. Okay, obviously the factor of me using it every day and living in the United States influences that as well. But even if it weren't the case, you're not going to forget your native language. Well, Spanish, I'm not saying it's my native language, but it's gotten to the point at which the strength of my Spanish confirms to me that it won't go away. It's almost comical to argue that learning another language could affect my Spanish in any drastic major way. I apologize if I sound incoherent, if I'm moving around a lot, as if I am a 12-year-old boy in a geometry class, but there's something biting me. Like, I'm in the back here of this park, and there are a lot of insects that just find my back appealing for some reason, and they're sticking their stingers all in my shoulders. Another point that I'd like to bring up here is that I don't know if this is a result of the snowball effect. I don't know what the academic definition of what I'm experiencing is, the linguistic definition of what I'm experiencing is, but it's much easier for me to learn words now. Meaning, before, I'd have to be exposed to a word 2 or 3 times for it to be retained in my long-term memory. Again, I use this word a lot, but acontecimiento, which means like an event. That word, I had to be exposed to it a couple of times to actually understand it, or to actually retain it, to be able to articulate it to you now. But recently, I have noticed, and I'm reading some books now, and I'll show those to you all later. I've noticed that recently, I can come across a new word, and it sticks. It sticks in my long-term memory, just like words in English did for me. And I'm thinking back to when I was in middle school, learning words like ideology or dogma, or I learned a lot of words from Kanye West's music he used. And I'm not making a political statement there, I'm just saying I listened to him a lot in middle school. Coldplay, who else? A lot of different music. I'm from Atlanta, T.I. I learned a lot of different words in my native language from hearing them in context and looking them up one time. And that same phenomenon is happening with me in Spanish right now. For example, a couple of days ago, I did not come across this word multiple times. The word calentador, which means like a water heater or just a heater. I know it's kind of embarrassing to not know that word, but I did not know that word. And I can repeat that word to you all now without even coming across it multiple times. Another word, I'm used to using the word cuentas in Spanish to describe your bills. Well, I learned the other day that you can say facturas, all right? And I think I had heard that word before, so that's a bad example. But my point is, new words that I'm exposed to, they stick, just like they do in English. If I were exposed to a new word right now in English, I don't think I need to come across it 4 or 5 times for it to be retained in my long-term memory. And that same phenomenon is happening with me and Spanish. I can see a word once, store it, and I have it, and I can use it, I can produce it. Another key indicator of fluency for me, based on my personal definition, is being able to read thoroughly, fast, and having the ability to accurately skim a reading. Now, if I gave you, let's say you're at work and you have to read over a memo or an email, most of us that are literate in English can read through something fairly quickly. Because we have so much exposure, so much experience with the English language, some of us, we don't even realize it, but we subconsciously can kind of predict what the next word that we're going to read is, simply based on the word that we just read, through context and through just the prefix of the word. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, where like you can be reading something in English and it's almost, you're in such a flow state that you almost already know what the next word will be. Even if you don't, it feels that way. And I don't know what the psychological, like what this is what's happening psychologically when we read like this, but I hope you all understand what I'm saying. Like you can be reading something, you're just like da 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 da, and you're kind of almost predicting. You're not literally doing that, but it feels like you kind of already know the next word based on what word preceded it. That is happening now with me in Spanish. The other day I was reading, hopefully I didn't lose you all. The other day I was reading, well, I'm reading both of these books, La Casa en Mango Street. Well, why am I saying that with an accent? La Casa en Mango Street. This book, which is a very popular book, I think a lot of people have read that. And then this book, which is No Somos de Aquí. When I read these books, guys, apart from just a few of the words that I don't know that might be specific slang to these countries, I think this is El Salvador, and this is a Mexican American woman. But aside from the slang, which would also cause problems for me in English, besides that, I can read through these books fairly quickly, produce the language fairly quickly. I'm comprehending. I'm not reading and then translating like, what does that mean in English? I'm reading the same way I read in English, the exact same way. I'm not tripping up over the words. I can predict what words I'm reading. It's as close as it can get to me reading in English as an adult. And so that is another key indicator of fluency. When you can read, I'm not saying a Spanish equivalent of Cat in the Hat. Again, we're in Atlanta. Delta Airlines is nearby. Give me 30 seconds. Yeah, so I obviously am not referring to easy books, but these books are written for, I think, maybe high schoolers to young adults. At that level, right? If you're reading at the same level that newspapers and online magazines write in, and you're doing that fluently, just as you do in English, in Spanish in this case, or any language that you've learned, I think that's a key indicator that you are fluent in that language in terms of reading in particular. Again, this is all a holistic thing that I'm describing here, but that is one aspect that's letting me know that I'm fluent. So with all of that said, hopefully that can give you all a heads up or some look fors in terms of when you know you have reached the level of fluency in a language. And again, I want to reiterate here, fluency to me means when you're L2, your second language or third language or fourth language, whatever language you're learning, or whatever language you're on at this point, when you get to a point of comfortability using the parameters that I've listed out in this video, where pretty much the language becomes second nature, it becomes as automatic as English does or whatever your native language is. You're not having to translate or filter the language through your native language. It's a part of you at that point. And so with all of that said, guys, something is literally eating me. But with all of that said, this has confirmed to me that as I move forward in learning other languages, hint, hint, Swahili first, as I mentioned before, and that you all already know, as I move forward learning these languages, I have no concerns for my Spanish. I know at this point that if I just continue to use Spanish regularly like I do at my job and in my free time and on the way to work and in any instance that I can, as long as I expose myself to the language, I'm not going to suffer. My language skills in Spanish will not suffer, just like my language learning skills in English have not suffered as a result of me learning Spanish, because at this point I think my Spanish is that concrete for me. So yeah. So I don't know how many of you all are gonna watch this video, because I wouldn't expect you to expect me to come out with a video. So I don't expect the views on this video to be too high, but I would like to talk about some new ideas that I have from my channel. I have a couple of stories that I like to tell in terms of just my travels and even me speaking and using Spanish here in the United States. Some eavesdropping experiences that I've had that were very funny and enlightening for myself and for the person that I shocked with my ability to understand what they were saying, if you guys catch my drift there. I also plan on, if you guys reach out to him and confirm, I'm reaching out to him as well. If you all reach out to Jalen, aka Quick Tempo, about a possible trip to Puerto Rico, if we follow through with that, I'll be going with him and his wife possibly to Puerto Rico. So I'll of course record that. I don't want to focus on recording videos on a vacation, but of course I'll do that, you know, just to document that for the channel and hopefully inspire some of you all to use Spanish if you decide to travel to Puerto Rico. I plan on going to Costa Rica with my brother and his friends, so that as well might be recorded. Again, I don't know the official dates on all these things. I recorded a video with Nick. I don't know if you all remember him. He and I at some point are going to go to a country. I know that he mentioned Honduras, and so those kind of videos will be out. Some story time videos will be out. I will have a video coming out talking about how you can learn a language from scratch, because through my experience as an ESOL teacher over the past 1.5 years, teaching students from all linguistic backgrounds, I'm talking any language you can think of, these kids speak it, and I think I've done a pretty great job at teaching them English. I've got students that came in less than 6 months ago and are now doing well academically and speaking English. And long story short, you guys don't want to hear me ramble, so I need some more video ideas outside of the ones that I've listed here. But other than that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hopefully you can experience the things that I'm experiencing with Spanish at some point. I will say, obviously it takes time. I've been speaking and learning and interacting and traveling with all that stuff with this language for 3.5 years, so be patient. I'm about to get out of the back of this park. I've been eaten, probably bitten maybe 15 times in the back, and there are weird men shooting guns in their backyards over there, so I'm about to get out of the way. Guys, I appreciate it. Que tengan buen día.